First, before I offer the exciting proof, it's really interesting. Let me tell you a little bit about our upcoming projects. The next one, and it's supposed to come out, actually it should have actually come out already, but it'll be out in a couple days. We've been really busy, folks. Is the origin of the moon. You heard me right. Astronomers have all types of theories about the moon. They say it was a big chunk of Earth that got pushed out, and there was the moon. No. The moon had a clear origin, and the extraterrestrials were involved in it, and you want to know how the moon got there? I mean, the moon is really weird. Even astronomers have been sort of weird about it. It's like it doesn't have enough mass for its size. Some people wonder if it's hollow or whatever. It's just sort of, there's a lot of, and you don't see, and it's a really big moon for a relatively small planet. Like, what? It's like 1/4 the size of the Earth. I mean, it's like, how did it get there? I mean, Mars has a couple small moons. Venus doesn't have any major moons. And then, and Jupiter has some sort of bigger moons, but they're not our size, moon size, and Jupiter's a big place. So, do you get the idea? There's weird stuff about our moon. So, like, what's the story with our moon? You're going to find out in just a couple days. We're working on getting all the sessions done now, putting them up, putting the project out. So, the origin of the moon, you're going to hear it here first, okay? Now, the next thing is our next Omega Mysteries project. Oh, yeah, the origin of the moon, that's our part of our Alpha Mysteries project. Those two major projects, they come out on FARSIGHT'Prime.com. The next one is ET PSYOPs. Everybody's a PSYOP. Anyone who's trying to influence public opinion, things like that, is a PSYOP. We have often told you Farsight is a PSYOP. So any group that is trying to influence public opinion in any way, shape, or form, the official definition for PSYOPs often involve military ideas of psychological information manipulation to get certain outcomes, to influence the public in certain ways. But in reality, political parties are PSYOPs, religions are PSYOPs. Any group that's trying to influence the public are a PSYOP for whatever reason. Well, the ETs are no different. They are PSYOPs. And so we're not saying PSYOPs can be good or they can be bad. It can be all types. But we decided to look at two ET PSYOPs that were, well, they were particularly irritating to us, to be quite honest. I was the one who picked the targets. The remote viewers knew nothing about it. They just did their sessions. They heard about it afterwards. So we did the ET PSYOPs, and the two ET PSYOPs that we did was Bashar, channeled by Daryl Anka, and Germain, channeled by Lisa Royale. Now, before I say anything more, let me tell you that Daryl Anka and Lisa Royale, the human channels, are amazing people. They are great people. They're angels. They're perfect. There's nothing wrong with them. And they're incredibly talented with telepathic communication, and we wish they worked here at Farsight. I mean, they're great people. But they're channeling entities that we think they don't understand very well. When you close your mind, or when you shut your body down and sort of open it up to an entity to come in and take over and speak through your voice, we don't like that at all. But when that happens, you're really vulnerable to people that like to control things, control you. And people who want to influence the public in certain ways, PSYOPs, would not lose the opportunity to do that. So there's one particular story that both Bashar and Germain, through Daryl Anka and Lisa Royale, have repeated and repeated and repeated, and that's the origin of the Greys. And that is that they were a species like us, human-like, and they destroyed their environment. They felt so guilty. They had to go into underground living in order to survive all the toxic waste. Then there was small spaces underground, so they started to genetically manipulate themselves to become smaller. Then they couldn't have live birth because it was too much, not enough space and everything, so because they were smaller people. So they test tube babies, and then they were feeling guilty about their emotions. That destroyed the environment, so they started genetically manipulating their minds, and then they had no emotions anymore. Then eventually they came out to the surface. The planet had changed dimensions or something like that, and then they realized they were a dying species, and they had to apply to the Galactic Federation in order to come here to Earth and ask permission for people to be able to go through a project of genetically manipulating themselves by getting human genes and splicing them back into the gray genes to produce a new hybrid species, and that they often call the Essassani. Okay, long story. That's all crap. None of that's true. But that's what the story is. You can get a real good summary of that story in Lisa Royale's book, Visitors from Within. The first chapter of that summarizes that whole story. And Darryl Anka, channeling Bashar has said that as well. Now, I'm very careful to say that Lisa Royale has not said it and Darryl Anka has not said it. It's Bashar and Germain, the people the entities who do the speaking. They're the ones who are saying it. So Lisa Royale and Darryl Anka are perfect. They're wonderful. They're honest. They're sincere. They're good people. They're trying to make a contribution, but they're not responsible for what the entities say when they take over and start speaking. So anyway, so we had a whole project on the origin of the Greys. And the origin of the Greys, we know exactly how the Greys came about. They were a species very much like us, very human looking, and they were a little bit more emotional than us. But anyway, they got conquered. They were attacked. They got conquered, and it was a group that was they were associated with the reptilians, and the reptilians not the species that were conquered, but the conquerors were basically the reptilians, and they captured the species and they stuffed them into, they had bees just like everybody else, and they stuffed them into new bodies, and the new bodies were these Greys, these manufactured bodies. And the reason is they needed a slave force that would be able to do things with other species like humans and things like that and not be affected by the emotions. Because if you were doing terrible things to a species that had emotions, you'd be like all upset because you're hurting people. But if you don't have those emotions, you can just keep on doing that. So they needed a subservient slave force, and that entire species got conquered. And anyway, so the theory was that people like Bashar and Germain didn't want to tell people. They wanted to rewrite history. Victors always rewrite history to make it look like nothing bad happened. And so they came up with that crazy story about the species destroying their environment and changing their genes and stuff. And so that was a psyops. That's how we look at it. That's our opinion. So we did a whole project on that, and what we wanted to find out was more about Bashar, and we wanted to find out about his supervisor, and we wanted to find out more about Germain, and we wanted to find out more about Germain's supervisor. So we're not trying to say they're bad, because we already sort of showed with our own projects that what they're saying is garbage with regard to origin of the Greys. Everything they say, a lot of it has truth, what they're saying with a lot of their stuff, and it's sort of mixed in with a lot of the stuff that's simply blatant lies. So you sort of, it's a mixture. That's what psyops typically have, a mixture. And anyway, so now we at Farsight, we say everybody is a psyops. So we at Farsight, we try our best not to have any lies at all. But it doesn't have to be that way, and most people that use it for purposes of mass control mix lies in with truth, so you can't tell the difference, and that's what was the bad ETs were doing. And so we were not interested with this project of sort of saying that Bashar is bad or that Germain is bad. We're just interested in who they are and what they look like, and also what about their supervisors. And they can have more than one supervisor. So we found out sort of a lot about the people up the chain of command. Anyway, that's coming out, and that's to live for, not to die for. That's to live for. It's a really interesting project, and you're going to be getting that in January. So that's going to be really fun. The Origin of the Moon thing is coming out just in a few days. And the first thing I'm going to do is show you what happens when you search for remote viewing with Bing, B-I-N-J. Okay, that's the Microsoft search engine. Okay, now you should be seeing Bing at this point. Now this is with the Firefox browser I've got it going on here, okay? And I'm going to start scrolling down, okay? Now, this is remote viewing. Now see at the very top it says remote viewing? Now, it says Bing. I go down, and some of the things are sponsored, okay? And you get something from Gaia and stuff, but look there, right in the middle. It's like, if you take away the sponsored stuff, we're like at the top. But there you see Farsight. It's like 2 or 3, 4 down. Does everybody see it? You should see farsight.org, where we are at Bing. It's at like right at the top. Gaia is above us a little, but they've got a lot of money, so on. So anyway, but remote viewing is right at the very top. Does everyone see that? Let me go back now to my Firefox browser here, and instead of Bing, let me go to Google. Now here's Google. I'm going to now look for remote viewing. I search for remote viewing. Now I'm going to go down and look for Farsight. Remember, we were in like the top 2 or 3, 4 in Bing. And now we look down. We see something from the CIA, the government stuff. That's significant. The CIA and the government stuff comes at the top. Okay, then Gaia. Now, if this was like Bing, we would be next, right after Gaia. But no, it's not there. Okay, well, maybe the next page. So let's go to the next page. And now let's scroll down. Yeah, there's a Wikipedia article about it. More about Gaia than Udemy, whatever that is. And then, okay, maybe it's the next page. Okay? And then you scroll down again. This is Google. Anyway, to cut to the chase, it doesn't matter how far you scroll down. I don't want to take up too much time. It doesn't matter how far you scroll down. We don't exist. Now, we are the absolute biggest venue for remote viewing anywhere on the planet. Period. Full stop. End of story. There is nothing bigger. Google, nothing. Nothing at all. Now, how can we be number 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 or 4 on Bing and not show up on Google at all? That's really what it really wanted. The difference is so dramatic. So if you look at Bing, we're like right at the top. Okay, Gaia was higher, but like we're next. That's like, of all the things doing remote viewing, we're at the very top. How could we be at the very top with Bing and not even exist on Google? Does everybody see that? Google is Google. It's a corporate entity that's very closely tied to the stuff at the very top. And so how could they have us not even existing and Bing having us in the top 2 or 3? That's what I consider proof to you, to let you know that you're really getting the truth from us. Because if we were giving you garbage, nobody would shadow ban us. Nobody would shadow ban us. If we were giving you garbage, they wouldn't give a hoot. The government is terrified right now because the UAPs, the ETs, the extraterrestrials, they're pushing the agenda, and the reason the government's stonewalling so much right now is they know what's happening. They know that the good ETs are taking the situation in their own hands, and they're pushing the agenda. Then they're going to continue to push, and the government's absolutely terrified. They're terrified because once you found out what's been going on for all these years, it's a whole house of cards. But if the house of cards collapses, what you're going to be left with is a lot of putting things back together, and the government doesn't want people to know what they've been doing. And so what we really are in a situation of is, we know you're going to have a government afterwards. We know that this situation is not going to destroy the whole planet. We're basically talking about my son Aziz has said it the best way. He said, basically what you have is a change of management. And you have something that's been controlled by the bad ETs, and you're getting a change in management at this point. And it's actually corresponding with a change in the presidential administration in the United States, too. So maybe that will have some positive impact. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. So I'm interested in what kind of files and things like that they're. Donald Trump, according to Haim Eshed, was going to release the information about the extraterrestrials, but was persuaded not to. And he was similarly going to open up the files and tell people what happened with the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And apparently Pompeo persuaded him not to do that. He said the agency wouldn't survive. So Donald Trump has promised Bobby Kennedy that he would release those files. So if that happens, that would be like step one in the disclosure process. People will say, what? And so we'll see. We'll see how this process sort of rolls out. But anyway, that's it. So in terms of the summary for the projects, the origin of the moon is coming. That's really big, and that'll be in a few days. And then E.T. PSYOPs, Bashar and Germain. Okay, and remember, with Bashar and Germain, the human channels are totally innocent of everything. They are great. They are amazing people. The only problem with Daryl Anka and Lisa Royale is they don't work for Farsight. I really wish they worked for Farsight. I mean, they're amazing people. Their skills are just incredible. And okay, and this is coming out in Wednesday, and I've repeated this statement about us and our part in this in the first half of the spotlight. So I'm going to repeat it one more time because I want it to be showing up in Wednesday as well, because the issue is that we're going to be telling you a lot of things that are happening that the ETs are telling us directly, and we realize now that we're a single sole source for this information, and we don't want you to think of us as controllers, because people do that. And we just want to make sure that you understand that just because we're the ones that are telling you the truth doesn't mean that we're trying to control you. So let me just repeat that statement one last time, and so that it's clear to everybody that what we see our role as. If there is anything that characterizes the Farsight contribution, it is that we are not special. Anything we can do, you can do better. We do consider ourselves an authorized group who can speak authoritatively about the activity of the extraterrestrials, especially the so-called good ETs. But by no means should this be interpreted to mean that we are the only group who can interact with the ETs. We feel certain that if Farsight ever positioned itself as the one and only source for you to get accurate information about the extraterrestrials, then the extraterrestrials themselves would drop us like a rock. The entire underlying purpose of all that we do is to show people how to free themselves from this prison planet, and following any one source as the absolute truth is the surest way to lose your way. As our audience, your job is to make us obsolete, and for you to communicate with the extraterrestrials. The big thing on our side, in terms of methodology, is to have a quiet mind. That is why we emphasize meditation before we do anything at Farsight. So if you learn anything from Farsight, let it be that. Quiet the mind and listen.